If you've been intrigued by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, if you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower lifestyle while still being part of the US, then start with the Saipan Living Relocation Guide, an A to Z reference of everything you'll need to adjust to life here on Saipan, Tinian, or Rota. Order here on YouTube, on Amazon, or at saipanliving.com. Then consider a phone or Zoom consultation where you can ask any question at all to plan your move to Saipan. Then when you're ready to take the leap, you can sign up for a reconnaissance tour before you move, or a relocation tour. Visit different neighborhoods, see what life is like, get your paperwork in order, your PO box, your ID, so you can hit the ground running. As a bonus, if you sign up for any tour or consultation, you'll get a copy of the Fast Track Kit that has all the forms and documents and applications you need to start your residency. My name is Walt Goodridge. Let's make your move to Saipan simple, fast, and stress-free. Hello everyone. Hi, my name is Walt Goodridge and welcome to Sunday on Saipan. If you're tuning into the chat, just let me know that I'm coming through loud and clear, that the audio is working okay. Looks good on my end. And let's see. I got a new or used laptop when mine died recently, and also a new cable. So hopefully the connection is more secure and a little more stable here. So thanks for that. That's made possible by your contributions, your donations, your super chats, and your overall support. Now, again, if you're new to the channel, then this works better if you participate. What I like to have is a conversation. I like to have a conversation between us rather than me just engaging in a monologue and a diatribe. So please participate and things will go a lot better. Let's just make sure the chat works okay. All right. Good. All right. So again, if you're new to the channel, my name is Walt Goodridge. I am a Jamaican living on Saipan since the mid-2000s, and over the years, I've written books about the island. I do tours here. I've been recognized by the CNMI, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands Senate, as well as the Governor's Humanities Awards for some of my contributions. I've written for the two major English-speaking newspapers, the Saipan Tribune, now defunct, and the Marianas Variety. So I've developed a certain amount of expertise and experience and observational insight into life here on the island, and many of the people who follow the channel are actually interested in relocating here. So that's tends to be the majority of the questions that that pop up here on the live stream. So with that said, I also want to tell you that there's going to be, if you're a longtime follower, obviously there's going to be a certain amount of repetition. As new people come to check out the channel, they'll ask some of the same questions that we've all come to know and love. But I expect that you will be patient with the newcomers. And if you are a newcomer, then definitely feel free to ask any question at all you like, all right? I can't guarantee you that I'll have an answer, but please ask away. First order of business. If you follow the channel, then you know that a few weeks ago, there were some orphan kittens that were languishing towards their demise on the second floor of an office building here. My friend who works at the office building mentioned it to me, and I set up a campaign on PayPal to generate money for their care and feeding under the auspices of Wayne Debelonia, who's the local cat whisperer and cat rescuer. And he was gracious enough to take the cats. And if you check out the channel under campaigns, the playlist campaigns, you'll see the progress, and things are proceeding positively. The cats are still, 2 of the 4 cats are still alive. 2 died before Wayne accepted them, and he's been able to resuscitate and revive the remaining 2. So you can check out videos on that. And the campaign is still ongoing. So if you'd like to donate, then check out discoversaipan.com kittens. And the reason I brought this up again is if you'd like to contact Wayne directly, he's on Facebook on his own Facebook account, but also under Saipan 670 Pet Lovers Community. So if you do a search on Facebook for Saipan 670 Pet Lovers Community, and the 670, by the way, is the area code here on Saipan, you'll be able to get in touch with Wayne. There were 1 or 2 people who sent messages to Wayne through my channel, and I hope you're watching. If that's the case, then you can contact him directly, since Wayne doesn't have access to likely doesn't check the comments section on my channel on a regular basis. All right, so contact Wayne at 670 Pet Lovers Community, Saipan. Okay, next, Rhythms and Retrogrades. Says they're planning to move to Saipan. Thanks for sharing that. I hope it's everything that you are looking to experience, whether you're looking to run away from something or looking to find something here. I hope so. Okay. Let's see. Next up, before we get to my diatribe and soliloquy, let's see. This is top news. Rhythms and Retrogrades also says, I saw the storms heading toward the CNMI. Be safe, and how do you prepare for this type of weather? Very good question. For those of you who might not be aware, right now we're under a typhoon watch. Might be a warning, typhoon watch or warning. There's a difference, a technical difference between the two. I forget which one we're in. But a typhoon named Sinlaku is making its way north, and right now the island of Chuuk and Guam, and also the CNMI, Saipan and Tinian and Rota, are under a storm watch. So what most people do in that situation is stock up on water. Some people may buy or dust off their generators in case the power goes out. During the last big typhoon, Typhoon Yutu, in 2018, the electricity was out for, I think, close to 3 months. And so that's an interesting way to live. But again, not a deal breaker for me. And so people buy water, they'll stock up on food, but generally we just ride it out. Someone asked if they should be worried or if they should just curl up with a good book, and I would suggest, depending on where you live, to curl up with a good book. Now, the reason I say that is, if you're prone to worry, then this next set of information may push you over the edge. But I tend not to worry about these things. And one of the reasons could be simply that I live in an apartment building with strong windows and a concrete roof. Now that's significant because the damage that that people who do suffer through the typhoons experience is that their roofs may blow off. We have 250-mile-an-hour winds sometimes, and that is a possibility, but not because the winds themselves are strong enough to take a roof off, but they're strong enough to take a roof off if the roof structure has been weakened by termites. So that was explained to me by a contractor here on island, that it's the fact that over the course of the preceding months, typically, if your roof is a metal roof, tin roof, zinc roof with wood supports and connections, then termites might weaken those so that they are more susceptible to be blown away by winds, high winds, when a storm comes. So those of us who live in concrete structures with concrete roofs, I tend not to worry. And the other reason might simply be that growing up in Jamaica, we had floods. We had a big flood in Gilda years and years ago, and many others. And you live through it, you make do, you do what's necessary, but there is no reason to worry unless you get caught outside during a typhoon. Now, if you are a resident here on Saipan or any typhoon-prone region, let me know what else you might worry about. And definitely, I'm interested in it. But I tend not to worry. I might stock up on water and a few items. I buy fresh fruits and vegetables, but I may stock up on a few items. But generally, life goes on after the typhoons as best as it can. And if you need to stand online at a laundromat to use their generator-powered laundromats a few at a time, then that's what you do. So again, I like to consider myself adaptable, and that's just, there's no way around it unless you have your own generator and your own washing machine. Then you simply do what you need to do in order to survive. That's my take on it. So I tend not to worry about these things, except perhaps if I have a tour coming up, then it might affect whether I do the tour or not. And I say that because I had a fellow once who came here just as a typhoon was approaching, and on the morning of his tour, the winds had already started to pick up and rain was falling. I called him up and he said he wanted to go through with it. I have no trouble doing it. So if you check my channel, you'll also, and look for Typhoon Tour, you'll see the fact that neither wind nor rain nor sleet nor dark of night prevents me from doing my tours. So again, I tend not to worry about these things too much, but there are people who may need life support, constant electricity. So I'm sure they worry for other reasons, but that's my take. Hope that's helpful. That's what I do during the approach of a typhoon. I design websites, I answer emails, and I design apps. That's what I do. All right. So next up, someone asked, Allison C1263 watched one of the videos on monthly expenses and asked, for example, a monthly income of $6,000 for a couple, is that doable for a modest, comfortable, retired life? I don't know if you have a typo in this, but $6,000 per month, $72,000 a year. That's more than enough for you to survive here on Saipan, unless you have some really exorbitant vices that you haven't mentioned in this email. But if there's an error in this, then let me know. But $6,000 a month, definitely you can afford an apartment here or even a house. You can, so that's very doable, not an issue at all. But let me know at Walt@Discover Saipan or in the chat if there was a typo in this comment. Okay, let's check the chat. Greetings from Atlanta. Thanks, Felix Manzueta. Thanks for checking in. Inspire One Light says, wondering if apartments on ground floor near the beach on West Coast have likely had water damage from flooding. Yes, allergic to mold. Two things about that. Good question. That's one of the reasons I personally stay away from first floor apartments. For several reasons. I stay away from first floor apartments because, yes, in certain instances in flooding, you're more susceptible, more likely to experience flooding. Second, it's on ground level, so there's less privacy in people walking around and looking inside your window if they care to. So I stay away from first floor. So that's a bit of advice I would give. I personally, and I don't mind walking up steps, so I personally go for second floors when I look for an apartment. Smart Bomb 7202 said, fill up your vehicles, dude. Yes, that's something I should do. also. Thanks for reminding me of that. I typically don't do a lot of driving around, but that is very good advice to fill up the vehicles. I forgot to mention that. So people will stock up on water and fill up their vehicles. Right now, we are up to $6.31 per gallon because of the Middle East situation. Prices have jumped here, and the gas prices have soared beyond what they used to be. Where can we book a tour? Felix Manzueta says you can go to discoversaipan.com and you will see links to book a tour or links if you're relocating, but that would be your best bet. Are landslides a factor on the island? Not particularly. It is a mountainous island, but these are volcanic islands, and so there's not much in the way of landslides that happen. During a typhoon, what you'll typically get is flooding because the infrastructure and the drainage might not be sufficient in certain areas, and trees down, but usually within 24 hours, 48 hours after the storm, the mayor's office will send out crews to start moving debris and fallen trees. So landslides are not a factor. Impassable roads, trees downed, that tends to be, and loss of electricity, that tends to be what might happen. All right. Years ago, before Typhoon U2, I think we had wooden utility poles pretty much all around the island, but there was a move to put concrete poles. So now I would say maybe 70 to 80% of the utility poles on the island are concrete, so they will fare better in a high velocity storm. I was in Maya Kushmore says, I was in Cyclone Kina in the 90s and it was scary, but it wasn't too scary looking back. Yeah, I tend to think people worry too much. I'm not sure. Again, having grown up in a hurricane-prone island, the level of tolerance I have for those sorts of things, I don't generally, I don't know if I'm an exception, but I don't generally worry about these things. Also possibly because I have no commitments and nowhere to go. So I tend not to worry about these things. They'll come, they pass, we adjust and move on. All right. Is produce accessible, specifically organic products, or are most imported? Good question. Felix Manzueta, 4853. Looks like you're a new viewer to the channel. Products or produce is accessible. If you check on the channel again for search for Sabalu, Sabalu. Sabalu is the Chamorro word for Saturday, and there's a Sabalu market that happens every Saturday morning from 6 a.m. to about 11 or 12, and that's where I get my fresh produce, locally grown spinach, locally grown okra, and pumpkins and tomatoes and sweet sop and soursop when in season, and mangoes. So yes, you can get local produce as well as imported stuff from the United States and from Korea and from Japan and China. All right, so that I don't think that'll be an issue. In fact, if you send me, this is something I actually like doing. If you send me something that you're particularly attached to, one fellow was interested in knowing if there was Lifeway kefir here. So I went to the store, checked out, and he was pleasantly surprised. Another person wanted to know the cost of chicken breast and pork shoulders. So I did a little expedition. Gets me out of the house. I don't mind doing it at all. So tell me if there's a particular item that you're interested in getting, and I'll let you know if it's available here. So you can just put a comment in any of the videos or email me at walt@discoversaipan.com. All right, next, let's see. Someone asked if Amazon ships here. Yes, absolutely. Amazon does ship here. That's how many of us get certain items that are simply not available here. Amazon, eBay. And I've done several videos on the shipping situation here because things are changing a bit, and it's important to keep abreast of it so you're not disappointed when you order. So one of the things, major things that the United States Postal Service is doing is they've combined several services now, and there's something called Ground Advantage, which, if you live in the mainland, is comparable to regular priority mail, and you get your package in 2 to 3 days, and everyone's happy. The vendor pays less for shipping, and the customer gets their item as just about as quick as if it went by air. However, vendors might choose to send a product through that new option, not to Saipan, not realizing that Ground Advantage is a meaningless concept here on Saipan because we're 8,000 miles on the other side of the world. So something that's being sent Ground Advantage less expensively actually doesn't go by ground, it goes by ship. So it goes by container ship and may end up taking 30 to 60 days to get here. So if you're ordering a product, then if you have the means to contact the vendor directly, then just ensure that they send it via regular priority mail, if that's an option, and not Ground Advantage. One of the things I've done recently ordering from Amazon is I'll put a note. You have an option to put a note, a delivery note, and I've put, please send this package by regular priority air and not Ground Advantage. If not possible, please cancel my order. And seems to be working. No orders canceled, and the orders have been coming regular priority. So that's something to keep in mind. But yes, Amazon does ship here. And then Gerardo Alvarado asks, I have a question on Saipan. Can you receive federal SSI, Social Security, and HUD, Housing and Urban Development, for a house or apartment rent? And the answer is yes. The details you'll have to look up by contacting the Northern Mariana Islands Housing Authority, the MIHA. I think they're the ones who might administer that, or at the very least, they will have more up-to-date and on-the-ground information. So search for MIHA, M-I-H-A, and ask some specific questions there. MIHA, Mariana Islands Housing Authority, and you'll be able to get their contact information. All right, so that's all of the admin stuff that we have. Let's see, any more questions? I'm from the Dominican, Caribbean Sea, so our foods are similar with Jamaica. Yes, absolutely. One of the things, that's a comment from Felix Manzueta, who's from the DR, Dominican Republic. Yes, one of the things I liked about Saipan when I first got here is because it's on the same latitude, roughly the same latitude as Jamaica, where I grew up, I can get 99% of everything I grew up with eating in Jamaica. I can get mangoes, soursop, guinep, breadfruit, yams, sweet potato. I can get all of the gimbalin, if you're familiar with what we have in Jamaica. The only thing that I can't get is ackee. There is no ackee here on Saipan. I might have to take a water break in a second. Okay. All right. So getting back to the Typhoon, I'm going to take a little water break, but I'll give you a little bit of little entertainment. So to wrap up to add a little bit more to the Typhoon conversation, the 250-mile-an-hour winds, I guess, are an issue because they are strong enough to overturn cars. And for those of you who've bought the Relocation guide are familiar with that photo. That was from Typhoon Sodalore, actually. So it is possible that you could be in danger. All right. And but generally speaking, as I said, the typhoon warnings come, people prepare as best they can, and in the famous words of Bud from what was the name of that movie? Kill Bill. In the famous words of Bud from Kill Bill, we'll just see, won't we? So let's see, give you a little treat here. All right. I need to be quicker on the draw with this, but
that woman deserves her revenge. And we deserve to die. But then again, so does she. So I guess we'll just see, won't we?
So, yep, we'll just see, won't we? All right, so now we will answer a few more questions and then continue with the fun. All right, thank you kindly. I'm from the Dominican Caribbean. Yes, how do you cook without power since you are in an apartment? Very good question, Melinda Hodge. Now, how do you cook without power since you are in an apartment? I would say 80% of the people here on Saipan do not have electric stoves. Some apartments do, but most of us are using butane stoves. And that may sound like we're going camping, but most people have either one or two butane stove, and you get used to using it that way. That's the way I've used it since moving here. That's the way everyone I know cooks. If you want to, you can have 2 or 3 or some with multiple burners. But people use butane stoves because paying for electricity for an electric stove would just be too cost prohibitive. So some people may have gas containers, cylinders connected to the homes, but most people are using butane to cook. So I'll do a video, or if you check for any of the videos, either on this or on my Ageless Adept channel, you'll see how that's done. But it is something that if you're not used to, you'll have to get used to. But again, not a deal breaker, just the way life is here. Maya Cashmore did a super chat for $19.99. Thank you so much for that. Maya, and anything you want to talk about, you have the floor. All right. How is your internet connection if you lose power? Now, Maya, I have to correct you. The word you want is lose power, L-O-S-E. Yes, I'm one of those guys. You said loose power. Does your phone still receive signals? Okay, good question. How is your internet connection if you lose power? The internet connection will last as long as your battery power lasts. So if you don't have a recharger, a power bank, then yes, after a certain point, your phone will die and you won't be able to restart it. Unless maybe you have a car, you can go and replug and recharge in your car. But generally speaking, the service usually continues after some time. The local phone companies will be able to use generators to restore the signal. So generally speaking, the phone service, your access to phone service will be dependent on your phone and laptop maintaining power. So yes, after a while, you'll just have to revert to enjoying reality without the distraction of a glowing screen. All right, thank you, Felix, for your super chat. Appreciate that. All right. And does your phone still receive signal? Yes, the phone receives signals. And to the best of my speculation, I would imagine that 911, the ability to call for emergency services, it would still be up, or if it's not immediately up, that's one of the first things I'm sure that would be restored. So it might be on a different power system, but I'm fairly certain. Again, this is speculation, but just in terms of knowing how the world works, I'm pretty sure that 911 service would be still accessible as long as you have power to your phone. All right. Again, thanks, Maya. All right. The other day you talked about collectibles. Is there any collectible you regret getting rid of? Thanks for that question. Last week I talked about detachment and the fact that I had to detach from my 5,000 strong vinyl record collection that I had accumulated as a radio DJ on WKCR. I had to leave my comic book collection, and these were not, the record collection was something that was still ongoing. The comic book collection is something I had grown out of, but I still valued owning the comics, owning the X-Men original editions, that sort of thing. Other than that, there were books. I'm not a book collector, but I left a couple hundred books for a fellow who worked at a youth center. So the question is there any collectible you regret getting rid of? I guess as I evolve and grow, I realize that life goes on without them. But I had some vinyl records, some limited editions that a fellow schoolmate had bought for me while in college. I had Herb Alpert's Rise, a long play edition. I had Maxi Priest. I had a unique collectible, a Bob Marley collectible that I found that was a novelty cover of the Catch a Fire album that was shaped like a lighter, and the top of the album cover opened up like a lighter. Little things like that were cool to have. I don't know where they are right now. If they are still in my friend's garage, then great. If they're not, then I'm almost afraid to find out if they're gone completely. But life goes on, and I at some point would like to reconnect with them to bring back some memories, but nothing that I can't live without. But thanks for that question. All right. I just subscribed to your Ageless Adept channel. Thank you for that, Maya. Do any of your channels or publications explain how to prepare and eat local tropical veggies and fruits which are not typically grown stateside? That's an excellent idea. And as I look for ways to expand the channel so it doesn't get boring for everyone, that is an excellent idea. How to prepare and eat local tropical veggies and fruits which are not typically grown stateside. Yep, good idea. I will make note of it. I might actually even bring in someone else, because I have my own way of cooking things and vegan, vegetarian style. But it might be good to show how other folks prepare it as well. So great idea. I do have some videos on the Ageless Adept channel. I believe they are still up. I will look into that and reactivate them if they're not. And you'll see how I cook here with the butane stoves. And you'll also see some of the fruits and vegetables that I use in that preparation. All right. Good. Thanks for that suggestion. All right. Otafari says you've talked about Ageless Adept. How much? How old are you, Sir Walt? Put you on the spot. Yeah, sure. You can attempt to put me on the spot, but one of my rules is that I never discuss my age, never talk to my age. In fact, when I have girlfriends, I don't tell them my age. So most people don't know. Of course, a few people do. My mother does, and maybe one friend who I worked with, and maybe the police officers or the desk agents who've seen my passport. But generally, I don't share it. But You can tell me, feed my ego here, but be honest, how old do I look to you? Um, Let me know based on these videos how old I look, and I'll appreciate that. Hopefully, it won't depress me. I just sold my vinyls, Rhythms and Retro Goods. Interesting. Just curious, what genre of music were you partial to of your vinyls? And also, who did you sell them to? And why did you sell them? Is it because of your impending move? All right. Felix also says, I see your Fast and Grow Young book. Thanks a lot for that. Have the Allens, David Parker says, have the Allens there ever considered becoming a state of the U.S.? Excellent question. I am back in the 70s, before Saipan became a Commonwealth. It was part of something called the Pacific Trust Territory, which was sort of like a United Islands sort of grouping, included Palau, Pohnpei, Chuuk, and Yap, I think, Federated States of Micronesia, and Saipan. And at the time, each of those islands made a decision to decide whether they wanted to forge closer ties with the United States or to remain independent. Palau, for those of you who travel, decided to remain independent. So they are a sovereign nation. However, Saipan decided to forge closer ties and became a Commonwealth. So at the time, though, the vote within the CNMI was, I'm told, was about 75-25. So there were 75% of the population at the time said it was a good idea to become part of the US, and 25% wanted to hold out and be independent. And I'm sure to some degree there is still a contingent of those indigenous rights activists who, or I wouldn't say activists, indigenous rights minded folks who worry about the loss of autonomy, the loss of control, the loss of land rights that might attend becoming a state or becoming more controlled, or relinquishing the covenant relationship and becoming more controlled by the US. So we don't hear any talk in that regard. It's not something that often comes up in the news or anything. I think people are happy and with the way things are at the moment, where there's a certain amount of autonomy. We're a commonwealth. It's not a state. It's not a territory. And therefore, that affords the island a certain degree of separation, distance, autonomy, self-determination, to a degree that a state might not have. Ultimately, it's all part of the US, so I suspect that ultimately the US could exercise eminent domain and do what it wants, but at present, to answer your question, there is no move that I'm aware of to become a state. All right. If you are Chamorro or Carolinian and watching this live stream, definitely chime in, let me know, or share what you know about that concept and that question. All right, Rhythms and Retrogrades. Ooh, you got good taste. I'm going to assume you were referring to the musical taste. Yes, I listen to a certain type of reggae, but my favorite music is actually country music. Alabama, Shenandoah, Travis Tritt, George Jones. I like the styles, the writing style of the country artists, old-time country artists, old as in 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that sort of thing. Bonnie Raitt, Jerry Lee Lewis. Check out, there's a song called Middle Aged Crazy. check out Middle Age Crazy by Jerry Lee Lewis. That's one of my favorite songs. And let me know if you concur. But I listen to all types of music, anything at all, as long as it's good. I listen to classical, I listen to country, I listen to hip hop, rap, I listen to island music that they call it here, reggae, obviously. So all types of music, as long as it sounds good. Okay. Yes, I'm just like you. I never talk about age because it carries such a weight in people's perception of someone. That is exactly, I was heading to that point. Yes, so one of the reasons I don't talk about age is because people, whether they realize it or not, have a preconceived notion of what a certain age means. And again, whether they realize it or not, that comes across and that gets projected subliminally, it gets projected energetically, it gets projected in the way they speak, in the tone of their voice, in the fact that if they think you're 90 years old, then they'll start screaming because they assume you must be deaf. So there are certain ideas and influences that I don't want directed at me by people attaching their preconceived notions of a certain age onto me. So yes, absolutely. That is why I don't do that. And some people think it's strange, but again, I also have detached from caring about what other people think about me, so it doesn't matter if they think I'm strange for not answering the question. But if I sell my boat before moving to Saipan, can I find a used 25-foot fishing boat to buy there? Probably. We do have a marina here, and I'm sure that there are people who might be selling their boats. Maybe check eBay if that's available. If there's a group on eBay for people selling boats. Good question, but I'm sure there must be, because people come and they go. People may tire of their boats. They may realize it's too much work to maintain. So I'm sure there are people who might be selling. All right. And Tadakatsu 14 says, yes, I've experienced this and I'm only 31, but it doesn't matter. Even young people, I feel, get this. Rhythms in Retrograde says, yes, because of the move, we are downsizing. I sold them to a local record store that is inside an old train depot. Very cool place. I love all genres, but most of my collection was 60s garage rock. All right. Tadakatsu, for instance, you're 31. Do you have children? There's an assumption. I'm assuming, yes. So you're saying that people assume that you have children because you're of a certain male and of a certain age. Then yes, those sorts of expectations. I don't mind the expectations. Again, I don't feel a need to conform. And that will lead very well into the discussion that I promised you, Tadakatsu, about the matrix. But yeah, I don't feel the need to conform. But what can tend to happen, again, if someone has an issue with the fact that I don't have children, that's not my issue, that's theirs. But it might just waste time with them acting incredulous and trying to find out why, and then projecting whatever assumptions that comes with onto me, if it matters. Again, it may not matter because that person's opinion of me I really don't care about. All right. Tadakatsu says, it's an innocent question. It's obviously possible, but sometimes there's a tone or expectation. Yes, absolutely. So again, I don't feel a need to conform. So that brings us nicely to the discussion I promised you. And specifically, Tadakatsu mentioned in a comment that he was looking forward to this discussion. Okay, so the discussion is Saipan your path to escape the matrix? Okay, can relocating to Saipan be your path to escaping the matrix? Okay, what do I mean by that? And again, I don't have any notes for this. I just have my thoughts and my ideas. So first, however, if you were born after 1999, or if you're too young in 1999 to have been aware or been able to go to a movie theater and actually watch The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, on a widescreen, then you've surely missed out on something. But the movie came out in 1999, and without spoiling it for you, it's about an individual played by Keanu Reeves, who realizes that everything he believed about reality was always felt a bit off, and that and then later or early in the movie he gets the chance to test that, because he interacts with people who also not only feel that way, but have discovered what is off about the reality that they're living in. And at some point early in the movie, he and the character played by Lawrence Fishburne, Lawrence offers him an option, a choice, and he can take a pill, a blue pill or a red pill. If he takes the red pill, he will be awakened to the reality, and he will see what things are really like. And the challenge is that many people don't want to know what things are really like. But if he chooses the blue pill, then he'll go back to sleep, and he'll forget the conversation and the experience, and he'll just continue living his life the way that he had been. And of course, he chooses the red pill, and adventure ensues. So that's it. If you haven't seen the movie, what I just described to you is just a really brief snippet into the opening sequences, but you must see the movie because it really does challenge a lot of things about reality. So in the preceding years, the concept of a matrix and the concept of red pill and blue pill has taken hold in the public and societal zeitgeist and cultural zeitgeist, to the point where people use those terms to define their awakenings. So people will sometimes describe being red-pilled, or people will describe my red pill moment was when this happened. And you can be red-pilled when it comes to relationships, and that's typically, if you do a search for red pill, the red pill movement on YouTube, you'll come across men and women who are producing content talking about the red pill when it comes to relationships, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to divorce, when it comes to the court system. And they'll talk about men being red-pilled to the true nature of women, or the true nature of the legal system when it comes to divorce and custody and ownership, property rights, and splitting of resources, that sort of thing. Or you can be red-pilled when it comes to politics. Your red pill moment might be when you realized that the politician you voted for is doing the same things that the politician you didn't vote for and who is no longer in power was doing. And you realize that in certain regards, the outcome is the same regardless of which politician or which party you follow. So some people get red-pilled when it comes to politics, and they realize that the politicians are either all the same, or they are chosen by a particular deciding body that we are not aware of, or they get corrupted by an entrenched system that forces them to behave a certain way. So some people get red-pilled in politics. So some people get red-pilled in relationships. And some people get red-pilled through any politics, relationships, romance, religion, for example, and end up realizing that the way they thought things were is not the way things actually are. So what is the matrix? So the matrix then comprised of many things. It's societal expectations. It is what your parents want of you. It is what society says should be the next step in your life, like getting married and having kids before 31. It is what getting a good job and staying there for 40 years and retiring. The matrix is the party line that you follow, the narrative that you follow when it comes to being Republican or being Democrat for those in the United States. The matrix is a belief system that is promulgated and that is foisted upon you that and is not questioned. The thing about the matrix is that you are not encouraged or even sometimes able to question, to step back outside of it and to see it objectively, because you're so immersed in it that you don't even realize you don't know what you don't know. You are in a state of unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know about the matrix. So it is all those things, and it keeps people trapped in a way of being, a way of thinking, a behavior, the origins of which, the purpose of which, they are not even aware. They're not even at a point where they're questioning it. They just accept it as the way things are, the way things should be, and they go to their ends, never having questioned why things are the way they are. So that is the matrix that you can escape. I'm not sure if you're able to escape it 100%, but you can escape portions of it. I will speculate. You can go live in the woods off the grid, but to some degree, you're still influenced by the larger society and what the larger society expects of you to some degree. You'll still be bound by the laws. You'll still be bound by the political system. You'll still be bound by the court system. You'll still be bound by the legal system, the police, law enforcement. So it's difficult to escape 100%. But again, to certain degrees, you can escape certain parts of it that are important to you. You can be red-pilled when it comes to the medical industry. You can be red-pilled when you realize that the way things are, let's say in the United States, they don't have to be that way, where you pay $500 for 2 pills that cost 7 cents to manufacture. You can be red-pilled when you realize that what you may know to be true about what the effects are of a particular intervention, let's say, are not being reported honestly. You can be red-pilled. I know one commentator on YouTube talks about his red pill moment was during 2001 when he watched 2 steel structured buildings pancake on each other after being hit at the top. But his red pill moment came when he saw a 3rd building fall that was never hit, and he realized something is a little odd here, that that opened his eyes to something beyond what the narrative was that we were led or told to believe. So that is the red pill escape from the matrix. Okay, so how does Saipan figure into that? I believe that if you're the type of person considering moving here, whether it's here or Guam or Thailand or Vietnam or Cambodia, that you are already the sort of person who realizes that your daily reality doesn't have to be the one with which you were raised. And you already probably have a nomad streak or a frontier type of a predilection for challenging the frontier. So the sorts of people who I run into here, people who've traveled a bit, people who've worked in Alaska, people who've worked in Japan. We have a lot of people coming from Alaska, relocating here for some reason, are people who challenge the frontier and the boundaries. So you're already probably that sort of person. But the way that you escape it here, I believe, is now you have the benefit, if this is important to you, to live in the United States, and you have the benefits of the protections and the freedoms that you have come to expect, but you're also now separated and detached from the day-to-day existence that defines how people interact with each other. So you still have America, the framework of America, but the day-to-day interaction is more influenced by Asian culture, by Pacific Island culture, by the mix of Chamorros and Carolinians and Japanese and Koreans and Filipinos and Chinese and Bangladeshis and other Pacific Islanders who live here. So what happens on a day-to-day basis, how people interact with each other, what society expects is different here than it would be stateside. So each society is going to dictate how people interact with each other. So I've given shared anecdotes in the past about how people are friendlier here, how people interact, people are a little more generous, and that's generally an influence of the Pacific Island way. And as a result, you can escape the matrix when it comes to interpersonal interaction. When people ask me how often I go back to New York, and I answer as infrequently as possible. I remember going there once and coming off the plane, waiting for a bus, going on the bus, and my suitcase hit someone on their knee, and the amount of expletives and profanity that were released is not something I had been used to hearing in public from strangers living here on the West, and living here in Asia, and I realized I couldn't wait to get back, and that was my first day back in New York. Years ago, I went to visit. So anyway, here, however, there is a basic way of interacting that is a little more cordial, more friendly, more endearing, more engaging, that dictates how people interact with each other. So you can escape that. You can escape some of the politics of the mainland. Now, again, you can choose to remain immersed in the political zeitgeist in the States, because through the magic and the magic of the internet, you can go down any rabbit hole you care to, and you can still feel immersed in the left versus right dichotomy if you choose to. But at the same time, you have the opportunity, in my opinion, to detach and have it not be so oppressive. A few years ago, there was a boycott of Bud Light beer that occupied a lot of headlines, at least the ones that were coming through my feed. So they were showing videos of empty shelves in supermarkets where people were refusing to buy Bud Light because of differences and decisions that the company made that had been boiled down to a right versus left perspective on reality. And I had the chance to actually step inside a liquor store here on Saipan. There was a fellow who contacted me who wanted to collect beer cans from all the countries of the world. So that particular time I walked in to get some empty cans to mail to this fellow. And I decided to ask the person who worked behind the counter at the liquor store here on Saipan how the boycott was affecting sales of Bud Light. He had no idea that such a thing was even going on. And that could be due to his age. It could be due to many things. But I suspect some of it is that some of the political schisms and battles that occur stateside don't happen here on a day-to-day basis in an in-your-face way that makes it part of the fabric of everyday life. So in that regard, you could escape that if you choose to. If you choose to avoid the rabbit hole, the YouTube rabbit hole, or the Twitter/X rabbit hole, then you can avoid that. So politically, you could escape the matrix. Interpersonally, societally, you could escape the matrix by living in a different culturally influenced environment, and also relationship-wise. And this is a big one for many of the men who are watching the channel. Relationship-wise, you can escape the matrix. Now, if you are considering moving to this side of the world, then you might likely have encountered videos and channels that talk about men going their own way, or passport bros, guys who decided to leave the West, whether that's America, the United States, Australia, the UK, Canada, and move to this side of the world to seek their relationship bliss. And that's because there is another matrix when it comes to how men and women interact with each other. There's a matrix that determines how women perceive men, how men perceive women, how the dating game goes, how men are rated, how women are rated, and levels of femininity and masculinity. And so there are aspects of the matrix when it comes to relationships, and also the exchange that happens within a relationship that many men have become red-pilled to, and therefore are seeking that someplace else. They are seeking that in more traditional cultures, in the Philippines, in Thailand, in China, and other places in Southeast Asia, Indonesia. And so for many men, thousands to millions, leaving the matrix of the West has afforded them a chance at happiness that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So they leave the matrix there, interact in a different reality here, and realize that how women perceive their roles in relationships might be more compatible with how they, coming from a more traditional lifestyle in the West, would like to see it. So there's an exchange, and everyone's happy. So I believe not just Saipan, but for many men and women looking to escape the matrix of politics, or the matrix of societal interaction, escape the matrix of the narrative when it comes to gender roles and relationships, that it offers itself as a first step, or as a way of experiencing a different reality, albeit still within its own set of expectations. But at least the advantage is, so my point is that you can go to Thailand, you can go to Indonesia, and each society will have its own defining set of matrix expectations and rules and regulations. But the advantage to you as someone moving from the West is that you can see now the difference. You can see where you're coming from and contrast it with where you are, and decide and be able to see clearly for the first time what aspects that you thought were just the way things were and the way things used to be, and compare them to the way things are in Thailand, the way things are in Vietnam. And you realize that the things that you thought were resolute, the things you thought were unchangeable, are actually just a societal construct that you can now choose to adhere to or not. So that's why I believe that a move to Saipan could represent the first step or an opportunity to detach enough to escape the matrix of thought, of behavior, of expectations, of interpersonal interactions in a way that wouldn't otherwise be possible by simply moving to New Jersey. All right. So with that said, let me check some of your questions, and then we're just about wrapping up. All right. Let's just read a few of them. If it's an innocent question, there are also positive things about knowing age. I'm a therapist, so it is helpful in both physical and social ways to know a person's age. Absolutely, Michael Dean. There are also positive things about knowing age. Yes, absolutely. There might be, and in fact, I have asked that question as well of people. If someone is telling me a story, then I might want to know the age of the person who they're telling the story about, and that helps me extrapolate certain other possibilities that could be age related into how someone may be acting or responding. So, yep, I agree with you. Otafari says, I consider myself awake, young enough while being ancient at the same time, an old soul probably. My question wasn't a serious one. I have more in common with Sir Walt than even he knows right now. Okay, so I think you're answering someone else's response. Are there concrete homes available to rent there? Yes, absolutely. David Parker asks, absolutely. There are homes that run the full range. So you can get homes that are concrete. You can get homes that have tin roofs. So yes, there are high-end homes here as well. Sometimes when I do my tours, I take people around and show them the $1 million homes that we have here. So yes, there's a full range, and you should be able to find what you're looking for. A lot of these US type of matrix involves pinning different parties against one another, class, gender, race, etc. It has always been a shame to see all sides participating in this division. Absolutely, yeah. And you know, that doesn't exist in every society. One of the things that I've been told whenever I give a tour to Europeans, whenever I give a tour to folks from the UK or from Germany or Switzerland, is they'll comment on how separated the people are in the United States to a shocking degree, to an even violent degree. And I've lived other places as well, and things are not that way. So yes, I agree that it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to have a society that's that split when it comes to ideology. And if you're of a certain age, you might remember when it wasn't always the case. And there are reasons people may argue as to why that is the case now. It could have a result, could be a result. One interesting observation that Matt Walsh made is that, and others, I'm sure, is that the US doesn't have a homogeneous monoculture anymore. There was a time before the age of the internet when everyone was essentially on the same page when it came to what was happening, whether it's boxing matches that everyone is tuned into on the radio, whether it's watching the moon landing on television, a song that's now popular on the radio. There are ways that everyone in the culture, even as recently as the 1990s, everyone is watching The Sopranos or watching Friends. So we have coffee table or water cooler conversations that more and more of the population is seeing the same things at the same time. But now, when everyone has their own individual screen that's serving to them topics that are catering to their individual preferences and scrolling history, then you have less of a shared reality that everyone is experiencing. So you have more opportunity now for people to feel separate from each other because there's no binding, unifying experience that everyone has. So, all right. Are you prepared for Sinlaku? Well, Hollywood naturalist. Yep. If you joined late, then I'll give you the brief rundown. Yes, I'm prepared. And for me, that just means I continue designing websites. I continue designing my tour app, and then see what happens. I should probably put gas in my car, as somebody suggested. But I personally don't prepare a lot. I might get extra water bottles, but after this live stream, if you check the beginning of the live stream, I do share more information about preparation, that sort of thing. But we're getting close to wrapping up. Can you talk about the storm for some people who just came? So there is a storm brewing. I think we're under a typhoon watch right now, and that includes Chuuk, certain islands in the Chuuk state, and Guam and islands within the CNMI. And they said that rains could start as late as last night, but that hasn't happened. And maybe as starting this evening, which is Sunday here on Saipan. But right now, except for a little shower earlier today, things are still cloudy, but fairly bright. So this storm, people are watching it to see what happens, and I suspect there are people who had stocked up on water yesterday on Saturday and are just waiting it out with their generators and their best hopes. But generally speaking, unless you have a house that's susceptible to having the roof blown off, then based maybe on termite damage, then I find personally that I don't worry about these things too much. I may eat my words, but let's see. All right. Tadakatsu said, Walt, this is definitely why I got interested in Saipan. I want to have a business and want to find a remote job. Two things that are against the corporate matrix, and I also love traveling. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that's easy to do from here if you love traveling in the Asia Pacific region, is that here on Saipan, if you have ties to the United States, then Saipan, whether you're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, is part of the U.S. for immigration purposes. So this, you can be in the U.S. while still being in Asia. All right, so, and traveling is definitely a thing that's doable here for a little bit cheaper. The matrix is great for us all to pay attention to our biases, habits, and lack of curiosity that wind us up in a self-built prison. Absolutely. Maya Cashmore says, great people talk about ideas. Thanks for that. I am assuming you're referring to our discussion here. All right. Tadakatsu says, also the way you've described the general Saipan culture and how people are sounds different and appealing versus big US city environment I'm used to. Absolutely. But keep in mind, I have to tell you that the economy is kind of suffering right now. Again, for those of us who've lived here for a while, we still see the benefit, and especially if you're not tied to generating money from the local economy, which I always recommend, then yes, you can still enjoy the friendliness. And in case anyone is watching in real time, as of 10:13 a.m. Sunday, the winds are just starting to pick up and a little rain is falling if you want to keep track. We're on Chamorro Standard Time and it's 10:13 now. All right, let's see. We're going to wrap up soon. What is Felix Manzueta says, what is the general religion on Saipan? I would say 90% is Catholic because of the Spanish influence here for close to 200 years on the Chamorro population, and so because of the dominant workforce, which is Filipino. you have high Catholic dominance, religious dominance here on the island. But we do have Muslims, we do have Seventh-day Adventists as well. A few Baha'i faith used to live here. I don't know if they still do, but generally speaking, Catholic. All right. Tadakatsu says, the gender relationship matrix has been most distressing for me throughout my 20s. It's a shame that in general, there is no equality between the two. Now that's an interesting thing. I'm sure you may modify this, but there is equality. There doesn't need to be equality. And therein lies the dichotomy and the paradox and the seeming contradiction in this whole gender thing. And that's a whole nother discussion. But here's the thing. Under the law, there is equality. U.S. law. Let's talk about it. Under U.S. law, there is equality. There's nothing that laws that applies to women that don't apply to men. There's no laws that apply to men that don't apply to women. So equal protection under the law exists. The biases that you mentioned, yes, those do exist. So you have people who make individual decisions, whether it's the court system or the custody, the people who decide custody, who make decisions, or even people who hire, who make decisions based on gender, and may hire someone simply because they are of a particular gender or ethnicity, whether they are qualified or not. So that's something to keep in mind. But in general, equality exists. The challenge, I believe, is that people believe or are being led to believe or would like to believe that men and women should be the same. And they are not. That's just a fact of life. It's just a fact of reality. Men and women are different. Men and women have different strengths. Men and women have different roles. That's the way it's been throughout history. So there is no need for you to seek sameness. If both of us are the same, then one of us is not needed. All right. None of us is redundant if we're both the same. But I seek you out because you bring a feminine energy. I seek you out because you have different strengths that I don't have, and you seek me out because I have strengths that you don't have. So we're not looking for sameness. We're not looking for men and women to be the same. We're not looking for people to believe that when women can become men, or men can become women, or men can have babies. That is just ludicrous. So we don't want sameness. We want people to recognize, this is my opinion, that the genders are different for a reason. And they are different. And there are certain things that women are good at, and certain things that men are good at. And we should accept that as a society and not try to force a reality that does not, that nature and that does not support and does not corroborate. So that to me is a little factor. But again, a whole nother hour discussion that we can get into. All right, so I'm going to wrap up soon. There's a hurricane hole in Saipan. I'd like to know more about the sailing community there. All right, can you speak a little on the sailing and sailboat communities on the islands? Percival, that one I'll have to decline. That's beyond my pay grade. But make a note of it. I'll make a note of it and come back and circle back to that at some point. Kind wishes. Thank you for that. Thank you. There's a hurricane hole in Saipan. Be safe, Walt. I live in Tinian, so I'm taking a 4-day trip to the Philippines to avoid the storm. Thanks for your content. Hollywood naturalist. All right. Okay. Thanks for the religion question. Good one. I should have phrased that. Feels like men and women do not perceive each other with equanimity. Yes. And that's one of the things that people are looking to escape. The fact that there seems to be a combative, confrontational, adversarial relationship that's being pushed, particularly on the internet, where everyone can start their own channel. So you have people who are essentially influencing other young women and other young women to look at men as the enemy, to look at women as the enemy. So I think it happens more on the other side. You have more women who are being raised to look at men and masculinity as the enemy and have no compunctions about expressing that in horrid ways on the internet. So yes, there's that. Tadakatsu says, I agree that they're different, but we should all still view each other equally in spirit. Yes, so I'm not suggesting sameness. There's differences, but these differences should not be a cause of conflict. Absolutely. Yep, I 100% agree. As in, if I'm a man, I shouldn't be expected to be aggressive as per societal standard and vice versa. I think as a man, yes, you should not be expected to be aggressive, but you should be accepting of the fact that testosterone does give you a different reality than someone who does not possess it. So I hear what you're saying. So yes, you should not be expected to be aggressive. But I hear something in that statement that we'll have to address in another video. But I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. Anyway, we'll get back to that one. The sexes came from and out of a certain polarity, not equality, as equality is illusionary and is overstated. Nothing can do what the other can do, which is not equality. Fairness seems more the ideal. Absolutely, David, I agree with that. Percival says, if it's above your pay grade as the guy who wrote the book, I take the sailing community is pretty small. I don't know if it's small necessarily, but there are just certain things that I just don't have any expertise in that would require me to do some research. But there are certain things that I can't talk about. Cannot talk about the drinking community. I cannot talk about the smoking community. I cannot talk about the sailing community or even the scuba diving community because I've never done scuba diving. So there are just certain things that are beyond, outside of my wheelhouse, that are just not in my pay grade. So that's why I defer, because I can't tell you anything from personal experience, and anything I do would just be speculation and making things up, and I don't do that. So, thanks for the question, Percival. I'll just say, since that's what runs through my mind, that Percival is not typical, but there are certain names I see that whenever I see them, Trevor and Percival, I suspect that the individual with that name has some West Indian connection, or possibly just UK connection. But anyway, Percival, thanks for that. All right, cool. So with that said, we have gone way over the allotted time. Thanks for everyone. This has been a really good session. Thanks to Felix Manzueta for the super chat for $4.99. Thanks to Maya Cashmore, 3,000 for the $19.99 super chat. Much appreciated. And thank you guys for checking in. Our stream has remained excellent throughout, so no dropped signal. So that means our cable is working great. So from now on, our live stream should proceed uninterrupted, unless there's a typhoon that cuts out the electricity. But with that said, thank you guys for checking in. Thank you guys for watching. I did want to do one thing. Speaking of typhoons, if you're interested in reading, there's a book called Drinking Seawater. One of my clients and attendees, regular attendees, when I used to have the writers' workshops here on Saipan. If you go to saipanwriters.com, you'll see some of that history, some of the people who've been helped by the workshops. There's a book called Drinking Seawater by Riza Oledan Ramos. And She asked me to help with some of the organization and minor editing. So this is something that's available on Amazon. But if you go to rizaramosbooks.com, you will see the books that she's written, her first, second, and third, and now her fourth. Started by her attendance. Well, she hired me as for consulting initially, and then came to my workshops here on Saipan. Once I hit monetization here on the Discover Saipan channel, I will start doing workshops here on Saipan, and they'll be brought live streamed possibly about how to start your own YouTube channel, how to write your own books. So any help that you can offer in terms of getting us monetized, and by that just means watching more videos and maybe throwing a super chat in, would be greatly appreciated. We're only less than 20 people away from hitting the 2,000 subscriber milestone. So if you're watching this and have not subscribed, then please consider it a special request. And thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, in the next live stream.